Următorul nostru invitat va vorbi în limba engleză. Tocmai de aceea I'm going to switch also the language in English. And we are going to talk about a very interesting subject. Well, it's about knowing your customer better than they know themselves. Now, that's a selling point. I'm very curious to learn more from Sam Olawale, marketing expert and entrepreneur. Sam, welcome to our business festival.
Thank you. Sorry, hi, I'm just figuring out how this thing works. Okay. I think I've broken it somehow. Okay, there we go. So, wrong slide. Okay. Sorry about that. I finally got everything together. So thank you for taking the time to listen. I'm going to be talking about something that most people don't really talk about. Hopefully you guys can find value in it. I'm going to be moving quite fast, but I know people here aren't native English speakers, so I'm going to try and talk a little bit slower. So let's get going. So who am I? Basically, I'm a proud father of twins. The reason you should listen to me is because I use everything I'm about to show you to run multiple 8-figure businesses. So I'm just saying that to show you that it's credible, it's not theory, it is genuinely things you can put into practice, and I hope that everyone here can do that. Basically, we have multiple businesses. One of them is an e-commerce brand that sells furniture. We do very, very well, and the point is we invent, manufacture, do all of this ourselves. So yeah, we've done this about 5 years now. So I'm going to tell you one of the main things that we do when it comes to being customer-centric. Okay, so the aim of this, like the wonderful presenter said, is knowing your customer better than they know themselves. So how do you do this? Now, this is a very important thing that even many, many big brands get wrong. And step one, obviously, is research. I'm sure many of you do a lot of research, okay? But separate from researching, I really advise people to get benchmarks. You see, success leaves a trail. So there's no point trying to figure things out for yourself from scratch. It's very important to be able to look at what others have done, what they've done to pave the way, and see how you can replicate success. The next thing is to have a very clear understanding of who these people are. Who are your customers? Now, when I say who, I really mean what makes them tick as it pertains to your product or service. And the third one, as you can see, I've highlighted in red, this is the biggest faux pas so many brands make, even big brands. And the point is, you need to make your customer the hero of their own journey and position your brand as the guide. So many brands get this wrong. They position themselves or the product or their business as the hero, and that is the biggest faux pas, and I'm going to show you why. If you can understand this, you'll understand really 99.9% of what you need to know as it pertains to everything to do with your customers. Position your brand as the guide. Let them be the hero. Don't do it the other way around. It's going to be catastrophic if you do. Okay, so the question is, how do you achieve this? How do you position them as the hero and your company or your brand or your product as the guide? So, before we go on, this has come about through testing. Testing, testing, testing. It should be something that you're all doing regularly. If you're spending marketing budgets in your business, at least 10% of what you spend should be on testing new creatives, new ideas, new narratives, new angles. It's really, really important. I would even say if you're really, really good at doing it at scale, we spend around 15 to 20% of our budget on just testing. And when I say testing, you should be testing 200, 300, 400 new creatives a month. That's really the benchmark of it. If you can't test, you can't know. Assuming makes an ass out of you and me. So don't do it. So, step one, right? We have a system. And this system lets you basically become Michael Jordan of your industry. It really, really does. And you do this by a number of ways. The customer journey is one thing you need to focus on. The customer transformation. the character of how they see themselves and how they're going to transform into something miraculous as it pertains to your product or service is so key, right? The customer avatar, which I'm sure you've heard a lot about, but we're going to frame it slightly differently here. And also the consumption and the hero matrix. If you can focus on these 5 things, it's really, really going to set you apart from anyone you're trying to beat in your industry. So let's jump into this. Okay, so this is a very important slide. And this comes from a great book called Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. I really advise you guys to read this book. It's a brilliant book. And what this is, it really is just a brilliant framework that talks about the character, the problem, the guide, which is where you should position your brand or product, giving them a plan, calls them to action by raising the stakes, we're going to talk about that later, and ends in either success or failure, because you have to give them a choice to make. They either choose to go on their hero's journey, of which your product or brand will help them get there, or they choose not to. And if they choose not to, you want to get rid of them as fast as possible, because you want to focus on the customers that actually want to pertain and go on this journey for their own inner hero, as I said before. And it all leads to the number one thing, which is transformation. Stop selling products, sell transformation instead. It's the most important thing anyone today has said to you. Stop selling products. It doesn't matter whether it's a digital product, physical product, service, whatever. Sell transformation. It's really important. Okay, so how do you do this? Well, one of the things you want to do is break things down. Since we're going to be testing a lot, you have to break things down a lot by narrative and by angle. So what do I mean by narrative and angle? As you can see here, the narrative could be working from home, right? And then the angle you split it into would be relationship troubles, job difficulties, so on and so forth. For example, in this new world we live in with COVID, everyone now, or majority of people, are working from home. I don't know if you know, but around 75% of people surveyed said they are willing to have job mobility and change job if it allows them to work from home partially or fully. So the whole landscape of employment is changing over the next 10 years, and it's going to bleed as well into education a lot. So your ability to pick a narrative and then from there test different angles would be so key here. So if someone works from home, one thing that happens a lot is knowing how to separate work and life is very difficult. You're in the same house, you don't know how to compartmentalize what you do. That would be an angle from the work from home narrative. Or when you're staying at home and you're stuck with your spouse for hours and days on end, another narrative you could use for your product or to test would be relationship troubles, how that intertwining between couples changes. So working from home is the overarching narrative. Angles you can see below. Hopefully that gives you a bit more understanding what I mean by the two. Okay, next slide. I think this thing is broken. Okay, so why do you need to do this? This is very important. All of this isn't fluff. It's so you can write and make content in a way that resonates with your audience emotionally. You need to penetrate the surface and reach down into their emotions. You can only do this if you truly know who they are and what they need. This is very, very important. Everything you're doing is to understand this, okay? So this is just a bit of a GIF from a template that we use. So we systemize everything. You can see down here, we have Digital Super Systems is the website. We systemize everything that we do from A to Z. We have systems for literally everything, even creative endeavors like this. So this here gives you an example of a spreadsheet that our team uses regularly for everything that we do, and it breaks down everything into detail. And when we fill these things out, we fill it out. So if I showed you an example of it filled out, it would blow your mind. The level of detail we go into really, really is amazing. And we do one of these for every narrative. And then from this, we have another document which then extrapolates different angles. So we really do systemize everything regarding this process. And you guys can do the same. Let's go. Okay. So let's first talk about the character, right? Now, your target customer has a story that they tell about themselves, right? And it's not about your product or service. What the customer really wants needs to be clearly defined. I know people talk about problem solving a lot, But the funny thing is, what someone wants versus what someone needs are two very different things. If you try and sell people what you think they need, you're going to struggle to sell it. If you try and understand exactly what they want instead, it's going to be much, much easier. Again, why is it that the meditation industry, which is a big industry, doesn't compare at all to the liposuction industry? The outcome's the same. You want better peace of mind, you want better body positivity, blah, 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 but one of them gives them a quick fix versus one of them takes time, effort, and energy. So even though whether you're losing weight, it's a mental game. The best thing you could do is actually meditate. One of the best things you could do for your mental health, for your fitness, would be to actually meditate. Why is it? Let me actually give a show of hands. Who here in the room would love to lose a few pounds and look better? Can you raise your hands? Okay. How many of you meditate? Raise your hands. Okay, so a few, more than I thought. Okay, so how many of you, though, would take a magic pill that would overnight make you slim if it was available? Come on, everyone raise your hands, don't fuck around. Come on, let's be honest. So the point is, there's a reason and a difference between what someone wants versus what they need. And you need to understand that. Failure to identify this is going to result in failure. Stop selling what you think people need. It's not going to work. Give them what they want instead. Okay, next. The problem, the villain. This is so important. You see, they even say this in Hollywood films. The brilliance of the film, most of the time, is defined by the quality of the villain. If you know how to truly understand the villainy of what this does to your customer, the problem, not just the surface level, but the villain that it really plagues their lives, it's going to really, really help you. So obviously you have to understand the 3 levels of conflict: external, internal, philosophical. This is so important because this is what you're going to do to frame things to then get to the thing that's really going to push them to make a choice, which is raise the stakes with escalating it. Escalation is key. If you watch any great film, and we're going to talk about this a bit more here, there's always a point in the film where the protagonist has a choice to make. It's either life or death, it's do or die. And the more you make the stakes high, the more you raise the stakes, the higher your chance of success when they say yes. That way, price doesn't matter, competition doesn't matter. If you raise the stakes enough properly, the yes will be so resounding, they'll just want the solution. They won't care about the price or these other, let's say, problems that most brands face when it comes to trying to position their brand. Okay, and this is such a great quote. If you can explain the problem to someone better than they can explain it to themselves, they will automatically believe you have the answer. This is so important. If you can, I'll say it again, it's so important. If you can explain someone's problem to them better than they can explain it to themselves, they will automatically believe you have the answer. This is so, so key. So if you can internalize this in what you're doing, it's going to make a big difference. Not just what everyone says, solve problems, solve problems. No, it's not just about that. Okay. Sorry, I'm having troubles with this thing. Right. Now let's get into something that I talk about a lot with people, Hollywood. If you want to learn how to sell better, the best thing you can do for your content teams is get them to study Hollywood. Hollywood has the hardest thing to sell. They sell nothing more than a story. You sit down for 2 hours, there's no product, there's nothing they take away, and they convince you to watch something for 2 hours. If they can do that and they get it right, they make hundreds of millions and billions. If they get it wrong, they lose hundreds of millions and billions. So if you can take the essence of what they do there and apply it to what you do in your brand and your product, it's going to go very, very far. So when I say about position yourself as a guide, this is what I mean. These films are some of the greatest films ever made. These films are some of the greatest films ever made, right? You have Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Hunger Games, and Harry Potter. You see, putting yourself to be Yoda or Obi-Wan Kenobi, or putting yourself to be, I think Dumbledore, for whatever it may be. This is actually where your brand needs to be. This is where your product needs to live. It doesn't need to live, let's say, I'm just going to go forward a bit. Many people try and make don't worry, I'll come back to all of this in a second. Many people try and make their product this. And this is the biggest mistake. You've got to be the top one, not the bottom. If you can understand this framing, it's going to really, really help in everything that you do, like fundamentally from its core. So if we just go back, okay. So once you position yourself as guides, right, It's you who's going to give them a call to action. You're the one who's going to call the customer to embark on solving their problem, because it takes energy from them. Whether it's something they need to do, such as meditation or exercise, it takes energy. Even if it comes to paying for something, when they're at their computer, you want them to get their wallets out, get their card, punch in all their details, put in their address, send you money, then sit, wait for it, you want a review. All of that takes energy. And if you don't position yourself as a guide to call them to action by raising the stakes, it's going to be really, really difficult to get as many customers as you probably should do. And from your side of things, putting yourself as a guide basically allows you to tell them what to do. If you put yourself as a hero, it's going to be hard to tell people what to do. But if you put them as a guide, once they've bought into it, all of these guides were completely pivotal and helped the protagonist to achieve their goal when it came to the film we're talking about here. So it's really, really important. And this just gives you an example of being the guide and not the hero. So, raising the stakes and calling them to action. Like I said earlier, at some point in the film, everybody has a decision to make. And the more you can raise the stakes, so for example, if someone wants a weight loss product, whatever it may be, putting the failed solution in front of them. And we're going to talk about frameworks for videos and content creation and actually give you some tangible things to use. But giving them something that's going to be critically wrong if they don't take action is the best way to call them to action. Many brands are scared to do this, but you want to sieve and root people out. If they're not the right customers for you, get rid of them. And the best way to do that is to raise the stakes by doing this, and we'll look at some examples in a second. Avoiding failure. Now, the funny thing is, if I gave every single one of you in this room $100, you'd probably feel quite good about it. Oh, thanks, Sam. Thanks for the $100. But the funny thing is, if I stole $100 from you, you'll be way more pissed off about losing the $100 than you would be happy for me giving you $100. Because failure is inherently an asymmetric thing for human beings. We hate to lose. We hate to fail. We actually hate to lose and hate to fail more than we like to win. It's just a fact. So knowing how to explain to them, look, now I've called you to action and told you you have to do X. I'm going to help you avoid the path that you're on and the pain you're already feeling. So it's really, really important that you leverage this as well. Ends in success. So this is where many brands jump straight to. They skip all the other stuff we just spoke and just show them happy with the product, dancing, laughing, smiling, all this nonsense. But it really is watered down, and it's not as effective at all if you don't do all the precluding things before this. So when it comes to success, one of the main things that you can do is increase people's kudos. What do I mean by this? Status matters. If you can really raise, and this is what we talk about later in the consumption matrix and hero matrix, if you can really make people understand that them becoming amazing in the eyes of their peers, their friends, their family, that's a bigger driving force than even being something for themselves. Like, I've got kids, right? And if someone, for example, wanted to chop my arm off, I'd be really, really pissed off and avoid it as much as possible. But if it was at the mercy of it happening to my kid, my arm goes on the chopping block instantly without a thought. So it's really, really important that your ability to show them that if things end in success and they're able to avoid failure the right way and the problem can be solved, the desire of transformation is going to be the biggest prevailing factor, because my transformation in that moment is to save my kid. That my transformation matrix at that time is completely changed. So will I want to have a lost arm? No. But if I do lose my arm, at least I can tell everybody I did it for a noble cause. So transformation goes much deeper than just showing them the end result. You really have to understand all the precluding things before just getting to the money shot. It's really, really important. So power, status, and admiration in the eyes of their friends, their families, their peers, is something that you should really focus on once you've done the prevailing things. And it comes to this, the consumption matrix as well. This is something we focus on a lot because many people don't really understand how their product will be used. They have a notion of it, but how will they use it? When will they use it? Will they be on the toilet using it? Will they be on the bus using it? Will they be in their car using it? Being able to put yourself in the real eyes, body of your consumer and understand what they're going to be doing when they get their product, it allows you to craft better narratives. Your videos should reflect all of the stuff that we're talking about. And I'm going to give you a framework in a minute. And the hero matrix is, like I said earlier, it's about showing them that if they choose to go on their inner hero's journey to solve this problem, it's going to be something that really to their peers is going to be amazing. So being able to document that in film and video and social media is going to be great. So again, we use all of this to craft narratives, angles, and it says there, basically research for our customers. So let's look into this a bit more. This is very important. So I advise you, yes, to take a picture of this if you want to. This is what we use to make video content. And the reason we do it this way, we've broken it down into these 9 steps. And when you go to film or make anything, you have to make sure you're focused on these things: the hook, the problem, the failed solution, introduction, features and USPs, demo, benefits, desired end results, and call to action. You have to make, really, for every narrative and every angle, you have to, I would advise you to find at least 10 of these things each, and then make content that fits these things, and then chop and change the content as much as you can, and make literally hundreds of variations each month. Remember I said earlier that you should be testing 200, 300, 400 different ideas on your social medias? This is how we do it. We have brilliant copywriters that break things down according to this, and then our editors just chop and change, chop and change, chop and change. You'll be amazed how one video doesn't perform well, you change the hook at the beginning, and boom, suddenly the click-through rate is 3, 4, 5%. So I really encourage you that this is a model that you should use, and all the biggest video teams around the world that I know use this to make hundreds of millions of dollars. So doing this and then splitting it down in your testing is really going to make it very modular and easy for you guys to scale. Now, I would advise as well, from making all of those different types of videos and content, you have to break it down into these 7 different categories. It's very, very important. Certain industries perform better with certain things. I'm going to show you a list of those in a second. But if you don't have one of these, if you're missing one of these things in your content mix, you're really going to be underperforming in your ads. If you're in an industry and you're doing 1 or 2 of these things, all I would need to do is step in, show all of these things, and I'm going to outbeat you very, very easily, just because your content mix isn't diversified enough. So it does depend on the industry you're in. So for example, when it comes to makeup, hair and beauty, unboxing is a really, really big thing. If you're talking about products for men, like barbecuing and outdoor stuff, spokesperson, anchor works much more. So it does depend on the industry, but it's very, very important that you have a mixture of all of these. And this is it broken down by industry. Feel free to take a picture of this as well. Based on what you sell, this gives you the #1 and #2 best performing type of ad to use in your social media marketing. This has been tried and tested over hundreds and hundreds, I think even thousands of ads. So this is very, very accurate. If you have a product in one of these industries and you're not leading most of your top of funnel ads with these things, you're going to be really easy to beat. And in this day and age, competition is so fierce, you can't afford not to have this content mix as I describe it here. And another thing that we do, that I would advise you to do as well, separate from actually running ads. Remember I said that you should spend a lot of your, well, at least 10% of your budget on testing. We do this really, really well, and we call it the survey funnel. Asking is a very powerful thing. And if you know how to ask the right way, you can make a lot better content just by asking people. So for example, before we launch a new product, we'll spend tens of thousands of dollars just surveying people. And this is the funnel that we use. So ad on the front end, landing page, they enter their details, we redirect them to a thank you page that has a survey, then from there they join a Facebook group or whatever we choose to channel them to. But this survey that we ask them is so well crafted, they think they're answering a survey when really they're not. What we're actually doing is using neuro-linguistic programming to actually pre-sell them. It's a wonderful thing. So not only do we get all the information we need to craft better landing pages, see which headlines convert better, see which images convert better, not only do we get that information, we're pre-selling them and they don't even realize it. It's a really wonderful thing. So I really would advise you guys, if you want to get to know your customers better, even if you spend $1,000, $2,000 just running a survey funnel, it really is going to go a massively long way to decipher what's going to work. Not everyone can be spending hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars a month like we do on ads. But even if you don't have that level of budget, you can run a survey funnel very, very cost effectively to find out answers the same way. So I really would advise that you look into this. And there's many examples online that you can look into, but I'll show you at the end how you can get all this stuff that we do as well. And from running all of this, this is really what it's about. Testing. You can have a brilliant narrative on one side, a brilliant angle on the other side, but you won't know which combination works best. So from all the testing that we do, we are able to we call this multivariate split testing. And what we're able to do is decipher which narrative, headline, message, I'm just giving it simple here, works best with the angle. So this is what it's all about. You might be running ads from narrative angle headline 3 to the yoga niche, but because you're not testing it properly, you don't know that narrative headline 1 to the work from home niche outperforms it by 5x. So if you're not testing aggressively, you're going to be leaving so much money on the table, and someone like me is going to come in, execute all this, and blow you out of the water. Don't let that happen. And it goes back to this. You're doing all of this to figure out how to become this, to them being the hero of their own story. It's really, really important. Hopefully you're kind of seeing how the testing is all done to get to this point, to understand how to position yourself as the guide, to make them the hero. This is what it's all about. And this is one thing I'll end with that many people don't even realize. How people talk about you when you're not around is really who you are, if they talk about you at all. So if you're not able to craft a brilliant narrative and understand the key angle and now the message, the price, the audience, if you're not able to do this, you're not memorable. You know how many ads you see every day? Every day, even in this event. Do you know how many ads you're seeing? So many. If let's say next week, I call you up and I say, right, tell me all the ads you saw at this event. I bet you'll struggle to name 2 or 3, genuinely. So if you're not able to really understand that the impression you make in your funnels, in your testing, in your narrative, if it's not resonating, you're not going to be remembered. It's just true. And the funny thing is, 90% of the time, people will buy from the brand they remember the most. That's it. It's got nothing to do actually with products or features or problems. The brand they remember the most is where they're going to default and buy to 90% of the time. Okay, and that's about it from the talk. Hopefully you got some interesting new approaches on things. We have a website that I know everyone always asks me, where can I get that template? Where can I get this? We are going to be giving this all away on digitalsupersystems.com. In about 2 weeks, we have like 100 different systems that we're going to be giving away. So you can obviously like go on the Linktree thing, and it links to my YouTube channel, which I talk a lot about these things in a lot of detail. But yeah, I just really hope that I've given you food for thought, things that probably no one has really spoken about often, and I really can't stress to you enough. The last 2 things I want you to take away. If you can explain someone's problem better than they can explain it to themselves, they'll automatically think you have the answer, and make sure you position your product, service, or business as the guide, not the hero. That's the last I'll say on that, and thank you very much for listening.
Let's give a big round of applause for Sam Olawale. Thank you so much for being here with us and also for the presentation.
Pleasure.
I will put it just here.
No problem.
Perfect. Also here. And also I'm going to be back